Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Excellent. So welcome to the show. This is, it's Monday today, and this is going out on Mintwave Radio. So you can just ask Alexa to find Mintwave Radio or go to the website, KarenRobertsCoaching.com/Mintwave-radio, listen live or see the rest of our schedule for the week. If this is on a podcast, again, same website, /podcast-network. You'll see mine, A Coffee with Karen, alongside everybody else who has a podcast. So you can download the app for Apple and Android. Please subscribe to any podcasts that take your fancy, follow them, and feel free to leave a comment. So today's episode is 130, and today we have the lovely Vernessa Roberts-Govan. So Roberts, another Roberts. And she is a licensed marriage and family therapist. And today we're going to be talking about authenticity, shame, self-worth, and how that affects our relationship. So my name is Karen Roberts. I'm your host. And what we do is provide a platform to get other coaches to get their message heard to the people who need to hear it. So if you're a coach yourself and you'd like to have your own show, then get in touch. We always have slots available. And if you've ever wanted to start your own podcast, then get in touch. The same website. So first of all, welcome to the show, Vernessa.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And Vernessa, she is a doctor. Dr. Vernessa Roberts is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is an author and professor. She is a private practice in Sacramento, where she works with individuals and couples. Now, her passion areas are dealing with shame, self-worth, and authenticity. Now, Vernessa is also the host of All Things Authentic podcast, where she has conversations that center around our desire and need for authenticity. So her goal is to help others overcome feelings of shame when they arise, realize the worth that exists within them, and to break free from the expectations of others and society. She strives to empower individuals, specifically women and women of color, to reach their full potential and become the best authentic versions of themselves. So where do we start, Vernessa? That is absolutely awesome. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on the show. If you could share with the audience maybe a little bit more about your story and how you came to be doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I also I call it like authentic life coaching, right? Because I do cater a lot around just authenticity. And so, I'm really passionate about that area because I've been on my own journey when it comes to trying to be your authentic self, overcoming these feelings of shame, self-worth. We all have that inner voice that tells us we're not enough. And when I originally came to Sacramento for grad school, that's really when it hit me entering the doc program that a lot of negative feelings are coming up, right? It's such a intense program. There's a lot of judgment, criticism, not in a negative way. It's just part of the program, right? We have to pass certain steps, so much pressure, for me at least. And so it wasn't until that moment in graduate school where I'm like, okay, this still feels more negative within me than usual, right? Like, what is this? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that I'm not enough, not smart enough? And I really started to resonate with a lot of Brene Brown's work, and that's why I've gotten into this work. And she was able to name a lot of these feelings that I was feeling. And so once I was able to name it and normalize it, that really helped me to understand that, I see. I also struggle with a lot of feelings of shame. Perfectionism was huge for me. And so I went on my own journey, really trying to overcome some of those feelings. It's still a journey too. But then when I got to working with a lot of clients, I realized that, okay, actually this is coming up for a lot of clients too. Despite what they come in for, I'll see clients for all types of issues, but there's always this underlying feeling of like shame and self-worth and not knowing our value. And so I wanted to be able to work with people just more intentionally around these feelings of shame and self-worth. And when we can start to overcome some of those barriers, it can really open up this more authentic life for ourselves. And I just think we all deserve to live within that authentic life.
Absolutely. And like you say, it's common, more common
Mhm.
than not. I'll
Mhm.
challenge anybody really that has never gone through any of those feelings. Why?
Mhm.
Where is this coming from?
Yeah. And it can be layered, right? But I mean, the one of the most obvious layers, and really a layer like none of us can escape from, is really the societal layer. There's so many expectations society wise for a lot of individuals, in particular women. Though men also have a lot of expectations too, but there's a lot of expectations placed on women also. And so that's why I got into doing a lot of work with women in particular. But then if you think of this whole thing about social media, right? If you're not on it at all, you're probably lucky, because it's a gift and a curse, right?
Yeah.
But being so inundated with this information on social media, it's almost impossible unless you have this extreme like self-confidence, know who you are to like a very high degree, which is difficult to get to. It's really hard not to like compare ourselves to others and then think like we're not enough, we're not doing enough, I'm not meeting these expectations. And so a lot of this is really just society based. And so I really try to break down societal expectations for individuals and how we can break free from these. And that's where the authenticity comes in, right? I don't want to continue to reach goals that society is telling me to reach. I want to reach goals based off of what I want for myself. So, society wise, that's hard to break free from. And then, in a lot of the research I did with my dissertation, family came up a lot. And so, a lot of family expectations can kind of push us in that realm of like, okay, now I have to reach the goals that they want. Now I need to be perfect. If I'm not doing the things that they want, now I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. And so, yeah, a lot of expectations can come from those close to us also. And then there's ourself, who's also
Mm.
in the mix. And sometimes these come from external forces, but we're often our biggest critic also, right? And we constantly have that thought of like, you're not doing enough, you're not worthy, you're not lovable, you're a failure. And it's almost on autopilot, these thoughts that we have for ourselves, right? And so
Mm.
really having to break through just this internal dialogue that we also place on ourselves. I always tell clients like it's almost glamorized of like, yeah, I'm my own worst critic. And it's like, let's stop glamorizing that and saying that that's a positive thing. Like, I don't know if it's worked for us, maybe to some extent, but it makes us feel really bad. And so let's start being our biggest cheerleader, our biggest supporter, and seeing what that can change within your life and with how you feel about yourself.
I mean, yeah, the one person that's listening to that inner voice is us, and I
Mhm,
think in general, and again, this isn't just women; it's men as well. But
mhm,
yes, how we speak to ourselves and criticize ourselves, I would have thought, I mean, I'm no expert, but I would have thought that that is far more powerful and is going to have far more of an effect because, yeah, who's the one listening? And
mhm,
sometimes we would never dream of saying things to a stranger or a friend or a family
mhm,
member that we actually end up saying to ourselves. Again,
mhm,
this is obviously learnt things.
mhm.
Again, where is this all coming
Where's
from?
where does it come from, right? Seems so innate. It's like the nature of us as humans, for some reason, just to be negative with ourselves. Yeah, we can say, it might come from, I mean, society, of course. It might come from family structure, family dynamics, parenting styles, how we were talked to by those that we were raised by, influenced by, peers around us. And so it can stem from a lot of that for sure. But I think too, as we just start to get older also, and we are just exposed to so much more around us, if that's social media, just even interacting with peers, those people that we meet, we do kind of take on this harsh, like inner critic dialogue, right? Where
Mm.
there's so many either direct or even indirect societal messages that we don't even know we're affected by. And that
Yeah. And how does that? How is that playing out? How is that playing out in the lives of your clients?
yeah. And so what I'll see a lot is it really just prevents people from being who they truly are, doing what they truly want to do. But most importantly, at the root, it kind of interferes with like individuals actually knowing like who they are, right? It's one of the hardest questions that I'll ask clients is like, well, who are you? And a lot of people, they're stumped, right? Because it's not really a question that we think about much. And a lot of the answers I get is very external. All right. Well, I'm a mom and I'm a wife and I do this job, right? And I'm a therapist, I'm a coach. And I always validate that. Oh, those roles you're in are great, right? Outstanding roles you're in. But again, who are you if, life happens and all those roles are stripped away from you? What's left? And that's a difficult question for a lot of people to answer. And it's okay if we can't answer that because we're really not sitting around thinking about that. With these indirect and direct messages we get from society, we're often kind of told who we should be, what we should be doing, right? Be this person, fit inside this box. Nope, don't do that. Do this by a certain age. And we take in all those messages and we think that, okay, yeah, this is what I should be doing. This is the person I should be. These are the roles I should be striving for without really a clear indication of like, who are you at the core? Who are you at the root? All right. And that's where our worth is going to be found. But a lot of us will place our worth on these external things and roles. And if those roles don't turn out the way that we want, then that's where those feelings of shame come in for a lot of us and for a lot of my clients of, okay, I know society tells me I'm supposed to be a mom. I should be a mom by this age. And actually, I don't want to be a mom, or it's difficult to try
Hmm.
to be a mom. And since I'm not fulfilling that, now I feel a lot of shame. Now I feel unworthy, right? I'm not fulfilling my duty. And so that's kind of how this cycle plays out for a lot of people. And so we can't put all of our worth and value in these external roles, right?
Mm. Mm. I mean, so many things there, all the things that we should be doing that, and that
Mhm.
is where so many people get stuck because it might not be what they really, really want to be doing, but
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's what they've been told at some point in time. I mean, obviously with everything that's gone on across the globe for the last, okay, I know we're out of it, well, I hope we're out of it, but in the last 3 years, do you
Yeah.
feel or have you noticed a big change because everybody across the globe was forced to stop for a
Mhm.
moment, differing amounts of time depending on where on the globe you were.
Mhm.
But so those questions where they may not have been asked
Mhm.
before, or people
Mhm.
have never had the opportunity to actually stop and evaluate where they are because they're just being caught in the rat race, caught, in that
Mhm.
cycle. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, oh, and then they look at where they are. And maybe, just maybe, that for the last 10, 20, 30 years, even, have they been doing what they really, really wanted, or have they got caught in doing what they thought they should be doing? Or, like you said, pressures or from society or from family has been
Mhm.
put on them. And
Mhm.
for that one moment, oh, wow,
Yeah.
big insights happening. Have you really noticed a massive change throughout the years with what's gone on?
Yeah, it could go either side. And so, what I have seen for sure is a lot of people coming out of this collective experience we've all had. Definitely more reflective, right? Now,
Mm.
is the reflection resulting in automatic action? Not for everyone, and that's okay because the reflection is still important, but a lot of reflection on, okay, well, who am I? What am I doing? Right? What are some of these things that I'm struggling with? Because what this experience did do for a lot of people, which was difficult for a lot of people, was it forced us to stay still. And most of us still found different things to do within the house, but it definitely forced us to be much more still than most of us are used to. Okay. We couldn't fill up social calendars, we couldn't keep ourselves 100% busy. And so a lot of feelings were coming up for people, which was a hard thing, but a good thing because now people can see that, okay, you have a lot of things going on internally that you kind of are now just distracting yourself with life and fun and busyness. And so I saw that a lot more people were reflecting on truly what's been going on for them and what they want to start confronting. And then yeah, I have seen some clients too, and it's a gift and a curse because this past few years have been very difficult and harmful for people when it comes to work and losing jobs and businesses closing. And so in a way though, it helped people kind of reinvent themselves of like, okay, this didn't work out, lost my job, but now they can kind of reflect on, okay, actually I didn't like that anyway. And so now I'm starting to kind of reinvent myself and reinvent what I really want to do and trying to go towards that path. And so I have seen that some, and that's been inspiring to kind of watch people follow a different path, but really follow their more authentic path for sure.
Mm. It's a shame that we have to be forced into doing it rather than getting to that stage before,
Mhm, mhm.
right?
Definitely,
Rather than,
definitely.
but I suppose as humans, we can have a bad habit of doing that until things get really, really bad,
Yeah.
and that forces us to look. But people can do that beforehand, can't they?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's like take that time to find some stillness, reflect on what's going on around you, what's going on within you, right? Take some time to really reflect on, is this truly the life I want for myself, right? We only get one life, supposedly.
No.
Yes, we know, right? And it goes by so fast. And so, really, when you think about almost living this life that others want you to live or what you feel others want of you, it's like life's too short for that. Like, I want you to be able to say, I truly did what I wanted to do with my life. Right. And I always normalize to clients like this. I'm not selling a dream or something, right? I know it's always this push, and a lot of these motivational speakers are like, be an entrepreneur and get rich and live the life you want. It's like, sure, that's an avenue, but what exactly does this
Not for
look
everyone.
like, right? Yeah, and that doesn't have to be like the dream, especially when I talk about authentic living. Authentic living is just really being in tune with your needs and your wants, right? A lot of us still, there's maybe a job you just have to keep, your full time job, and that you don't really like that much. But this world we live in, like, we have to work, we have families to feed. And like, we can't just say, yep, I'm quitting because I always wanted to do this other thing. It's like, what's actually feasible for you and how can we combine the two? Maybe you want to and need to keep this full-time job over here for survival because we all need to survive, but maybe there's something else that you want to do that you've been passionate about, that you've been just sitting on. It can be a big thing or even a small thing, right? And so it's really being in tune with what works for you, right? Not what society is saying success looks like. It's what success look like for you. What are you going to be satisfied with?
Mm. Because again, going back to what society puts on you, like you say, what what does success look like? For some people, they want the big house.
Mhm.
I just look at it and think, oh, cleaning.
Yeah.
I like things simple. I'd
Yeah.
rather have somewhere, abroad. Whereas for others, they don't want to go abroad. They want to, and so, yeah, there isn't a one size fits all. But
Mhm.
this word being authentic gets thrown about a lot at the
Mhm.
moment. It's almost like a buzzword. You've got to
Yeah.
be your authentic self. But
Yeah.
what are you, for somebody out there that's listening? Well, how do they get to that? What do you mean? What do you
Mhm.
mean being your authentic self? How do I even figure that out?
Yeah, yeah. So first I'll share kind of what it's not, and then a little bit of what it can be. Because like you said, it can be this buzzword. And so it almost gets misused where it's like, oh, I'm being my authentic self. So that means I can just act how I want, say whatever I want. And it's like, okay, hold on. Like authenticity still requires some self-reflection. And what authenticity requires is still an empathy for others, right? We can still be true to ourselves, not feel like we have to change or conform, but still have empathy for others, right? And so we're still considerate of other people's thoughts and feelings. That doesn't mean I'm authentic. I'm gonna go out and say whatever I want to whoever because hey, that's my authentic self. It's like, no, now we're just getting into more of like
Yeah. No
selfishness,
need to be rude.
inconsiderate,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So just to clarify that being authentic still needs some type of empathy for others. And so when you think about this journey towards authenticity, I think it can be rooted in maybe a couple questions you can ask yourself. And so one, it's that difficult question I mentioned before of who are you? Okay? Really sitting down and reflecting on who you are. Again, this isn't the things that you're doing. It's the core, right? So, core values, core characteristics. Think about it in a way that no one can take these things away from you. Okay. So, once you have some type of insight into who you are, now asking yourself, what do you need and what do you want for yourself? And this can be tangible things, right? Maybe there's some goals you have, but it can be other things too, right? A lot of us just want, I want a sense of peace. Okay. Peace isn't tangible. We don't know what that looks like at times. There's nothing we can grab a hold on to that now tells us, oh, I'm at peace. Just this inner feeling that we have. But once you figure out what these needs are, now asking yourself, okay, what do I need to get to this? If peace is one of them, what do I need to get to this sense of peace? And also a question of what's preventing me from getting to these needs that I have. And maybe you'll start to reflect on, well, so and so doesn't want me to achieve that goal. Oh, that goal is frowned upon in my family. That career choice, that's not deemed as successful in my family or to society. And then maybe you start to realize that a lot of the barriers come from yourself. Well, that's really scary, right? Self doubt. There's no way I can do that, right? Write a book? Who, me? Like, there's no way, right? All these doubt comes in, and that's where that shame comes in. And being outside our comfort zone, too, that's probably a thought of like, oh, I'll be way too uncomfortable doing that. And so, really reflecting on what you need to get to some of these wants and needs and your true desires. What's stopping you? What are your barriers? And then again, that core foundation of like, who are you? Hmm.
Mm.
Sounds like a lot to journey. You don't have to do this all at once, all in a
In
day.
5 minutes,
Yeah.
figure it
Like,
all out. I mean,
yeah,
it's an ongoing
it's a
journey, isn't it?
journey.
And
Yeah.
and we have the prerogative to change our minds,
Yeah.
and
Definitely.
it's interesting, isn't it? Just sometimes some of the things that you think you really really want, and then you get there and you think, actually. Well, that's taking a bit more effort, or that means well, that's unsociable hours now I'm working,
Yeah.
and actually, is that really what I want? So
Mhm.
that's why it is such a journey, isn't it? And there is no right and wrong. But
Yeah.
for some people, I mean, it's like you're talking about things like, yeah, we want peace, but
Mhm.
there's a contradiction sometimes because you mentioned about sometimes to achieve your goals, you've got to step out of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
Well, that in the beginning might not give you peace.
Mhm.
So, how does somebody know that that's just your comfort zone that you're stretching and you've got to go
Mhm.
beyond that? Or actually, that's affecting your sense of peace, actually step back.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, right? And so one, and this isn't very tangible, but this kind of goes back to when I was talking about that stillness, right? If we truly know the difference, if we can be still enough and in tune with ourselves to know, right? And it's very hard to get to that place. But in reality, we know ourselves, hopefully, more than anyone else, but we just have to be still enough. But in this society, oh, that's hard. There's so much to do, so much to see. Social
Distractions.
media, right? Phones is a huge thing. And so it's so hard to really be in tune with ourselves and what's going on. But if you can find that stillness and reflection to be in tune, you'll start to know the difference. Because if something is going to bring me peace, right? Of like, okay, I'm really excited to reach this passion of mine, and it's going to bring me peace long term because it's authentically what I want to do. But you know that, okay, I'm just uncomfortable around this because it's scary, but I'm still excited for it, right? I still know that there's a passion there behind this discomfort, right? It's really in tune with what I want for myself. But yeah, when it's then the other side of like, yeah, how do we know that it's just discomfort, right? We're uncomfortable. And that's really when maybe this self doubt starts to creep up, right?
Mm.
And again, you know that in the back of your head and in your heart, right? This is still something I'm passionate about, but maybe I'll just wait until next week, or actually, no, next month. Next year,
Mm.
I'm too busy right now, right? We start making these excuses for ourselves. And that's just this fear, all right? That's the self doubt creeping in. Normal, of course, but once we start inching out of our comfort zone, our body wants to tell us, like, nope, nope, don't go too far. Remember, we like this safety, we like this certainty. But I always tell people, and I had to use this for myself too, as I've gotten to this place of like doing more things, speaking more, right? It's like, if my initial thought is, no, say no to that, say no to that, I need to really reflect on, okay, like, is this really misaligned with what I want for myself and my authentic self and authentic goals? Or am I just like fearful, have self doubt? More times than not, it's like, yeah, no, I'm terrified of this opportunity, right? And that's where that in tune is. Like, we start to know that, like, no, like, truly, this isn't going to bring me peace. I don't like that. That's not a line. And we know when it's like, yeah, I'm petrified of that. I don't think I can do it, right? I don't think I'm good enough. But I always tell clients that is exactly the space you need to be in when we're uncomfortable, when you want to say no to something, when you want to start backing out of something. That's exactly the space we want to be in, and that's where we want you to stay. Extremely hard,
Mm.
I know, but that's where that growth comes in, and that's where we really break into this authentic life and really being in tune with our authentic self.
Right. And it is it is all about doing the inner work. And I suppose
Mhm,
again, like you say, this stuff is so intangible,
mhm, mhm,
but I suppose people only know when they're doing it. You can
mhm,
only know not by, talking about it or reading about doing it, but in the doing
mhm, mhm.
part of it, because that is, like you say, in the stillness and peace of quiet. I mean, again, like we're just constant
Oh, yeah.
distractions. We need to just switch off
Yes.
every once in a while or
Yeah.
daily if you
Yeah.
can, and have a little bit of that quiet time to go within,
Mhm.
to be connected, because I suppose again we've been conditioned to switch off from that. When you're at
Mhm.
school, if I was daydreaming and looking out the window, I got told off by the teacher.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, actually, we need to get back to that, doing a little bit of that. It's okay
Yeah.
to sort of drift off and have dreams and have goals, but that are in tune with ourselves. But you talked about very early on about the fear part of it, and again, because of society, and maybe even, like we said, some things have come out of what's gone on globally where people have been forced, but then there could be the opposite going on now, because if they do still have their job, then the fear of losing that
Mhm.
job might be
Mhm.
stopping them from actually
Mhm.
stepping out of their comfort zone and going through for what they actually really, really, really want. So how would
Mhm.
you help somebody that's in that stage? Because yeah, it's scary, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, and it's still, yeah, what kind of first thing that popped up when you're mentioning that is still kind of addressing, this hierarchy of needs that we have. And so, yeah, if you've been able to maintain this job, but now fearful of like losing it, something happening, all right. Depending what some other goals you have for yourself. Again, you shouldn't feel like you have to, okay, take this huge leap of faith and just, leave that opportunity before it leaves me, right? It's like, no, we don't have to do that. You have to think of this hierarchy of needs, and at the base of our needs is still like the essential stuff, like survival type things. And so holding on to these aspects where you feel it is your survival, okay, if that's job, whatever it is, keeping family intact, whatever that will look like for you, but continuing to push through, right? And so, of course, easier said than done, but having this fear that this is going to happen, I'm going to lose this job. I was actually just talking to a client about this yesterday. It's this fear of what's to come. This client's always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and understandable, right? We know life has its ups and downs for sure. We can't do anything to change that as much as we try to hold on to the sense of control. Life is still going to bring us up, still going to bring us down. And so we can't spend our whole lives just waiting for something bad to happen, waiting for the shoe to drop. It's like, what will it look like to stay present in this moment? Okay, you're currently in this position, in this job, maybe some fears around it, but what will it look like to stay present within that? Right. And if you truly are fearful of something happening, and can be a whole other conversation, if you have evidence that, like, no, this actually might happen, right? But a lot of times we have these catastrophic thoughts, and really there's no evidence to back it up, right? If there's this fear of losing job, definitely can happen to anyone, but a lot of jobs are different, right? And so I'm in Sacramento, and so there's a lot of state workers in this area with the capital. And we all know around here, like, state workers are pretty much set, right? Like, you're not getting let go unless you do something very catastrophic. So it's like a job like that, you have to reflect on the evidence of, like, well, is it likely that I could lose this? Right? No, I think I'm just like being hard on myself. But if there's some things going on where you actually have some evidence of, like, no, some things are going on, like something could happen. Now that's maybe where some action comes in. Okay. Well, what do you want to prepare for yourself? Right? Because it's okay if the shoe's going to drop, but how do you prepare for it? And it's okay to prepare and maybe plan in advance for some things, but still trying to be present in the moment. Okay? Not filling ourselves with too much anxiety. This anxiety is us
Mm.
over preparing for what may come. And forget the statistic, but it's like a high percentage of, like, it's probably like 90% of something, like 90% of things that we imagine in our head as adults never happen, right? Never
No,
happens at all. But it sounds
no,
good in our head,
yeah,
but never
it's all
happens.
stories.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of a long answer, but it's like finding that balance of, like, being present, being in control of our catastrophic thinking, not living our life in a way that it's like waiting for the other shoe to drop, but also this balance of like, okay, it's okay to like have backup plans and prepare yourself and feel like you're prepared, because that preparation can help ease some of that anxiety also.
Mm,
But it's finding a balance, right? Not over
yeah, but
anxiety, right? And still being present.
yeah, it is that balance. I suppose, yeah, the anxiety is worrying about a imagined future that
Yeah.
hasn't happened. Yeah, yeah, come back, come back, come back.
Yeah.
So for you as a marriage and family therapist, how does this play out in then so that's sort of business side of things or jobs and that, but this is still going to be playing out in relationships, family and partner. So how does this play out in that?
Yeah. And the anxiety portion of it, or
Yeah, anxiety or shame, your
no.
self-worth.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the shame can be huge within relationships, and I'll address this a lot with couples because, first you have to think about it is we're two individuals entering this relationship and coming from more times than not two different backgrounds, two different upbringings, and a lot of different like baggage that we're coming in with. And a lot of us unfortunately aren't healed from a lot of these things also. And so, it's almost both of our inner childs coming and intermixing within this adult relationship now. And so a lot of the feelings of shame, it still brings up that feeling of like not being enough, not being lovable. And if we have that as a true core belief, right, that we're not enough, that we're not lovable, imagine how that's going to start to impact this intimate relationship that you're in. Now you're going to almost start to doubt yourself within the relationship. But what I start to see a lot is you're also doubting like your partner's commitment to you, right? A lot of people just think that, yeah, well, we're just together, but it's just how it worked out. I'm not sure if they truly want to be with me, if they truly love me. We start to go in this cycle of like self-doubt. And when one or both partners are filled with some shame, shame is going to be a barrier to us being our authentic self. Shame's going to be a barrier to us being able to be vulnerable, right? Because it's like us feeling exposed. But if we don't have that within a relationship, what it leads to, it's just that disconnect. Okay? If I can't be my authentic self, if I can't be vulnerable, if I'm filled with shame, shame makes us kind of withdraw and hide. I have to hide this part of, and that has to happen a lot in society. But the last place we want that to happen is in our intimate relationship. But I'll see this time and time again of I can't be my true self. If I'm my true self, will they still love me? Will they still accept me?
Mm,
Will I feel this sense of belonging? And so because I have that fear of rejection, abandonment is a huge one. I can only show parts of myself to my partner. Okay. Now it works for a short period of time, maybe even a long period of time. But it's difficult to have this truly fulfilling relationship if you feel like you can't fully be yourself and if you have to hide parts of yourself.
mm.
So, yeah, with like my couples work, besides other like normal couple type issues, when I get to the root of some of these things, that shame is usually very heavy within relationships.
So how do you help them with that then? How do you help them overcome all of that?
Yeah. So we really try to get to the root of some of these feelings of shame. So one, trying to identify the kind of the cause of it, where it stems from. And so oftentimes we are digging a little bit into like past experiences, childhood, upbringing. And that's helpful because usually partners have a good understanding of each other's childhood and past. But sometimes there's a lot of things that we're able to uncover that's new information to the partner. And so we'll discuss some past things, really see where this feeling of, this fear of abandonment might come from. And then when it comes to the relationship, I really try to help them identify, okay, what feelings also come up when it comes to these feelings of shame and what triggers currently exist within the relationship that trigger those feelings of shame or these other negative feelings. All right. And that's when we can really start getting into some of the relational dynamics of well, yeah, I've never mentioned this, but partner likes to joke about A, B, and C with me, part of their personality, but they don't know that's actually triggering something within me that maybe they didn't even know was a trigger until their partner started
Mm.
making these jokes or comments, right? Or maybe, I try to be open and vulnerable, but then I get dismissed by partner. And usually I have to dig, well, what does this dismissal look like? They give an example so then partner can understand what they're doing. But that's insightful, right? Of like, I didn't think that's dismissing you. I just thought, I don't know what to say back to that, right?
Mm.
So things like that, really digging at what's truly going on underneath the surface when these feelings come up. How is this relationship triggering you? And really just trying to get couples into this new cycle of communication, right? Not the cycle that maybe our inner child has learned when it comes to communicating. And a lot of that might come from past, right? If we communicate very loudly and aggressively, and I need to feel heard. So the only way I can feel heard is by yelling. And that's very much our inner child, right? Or that defensiveness, right? I feel like you're attacking me. And so now I'm going to go into survival mode. Now I'm going to defend myself. So then couples end up almost in this boxing ring that I like to describe it as.
Mm.
But that's not connecting. That's not hearing each other. And so really getting them to a place of getting to these core emotions, very difficult. But when we get to those core emotions, those vulnerable feelings, then we're actually able to truly connect with each other, right? There's no facade, right? It's just our authentic self, our authentic feelings.
Mm. So for you, when you're working with clients, or who do you really love working with? What specific problems do you really love solving when people come to you?
Yeah, I know. And that's kind of why I started the authentic life coaching because when it comes to like my therapy clients, I mean, I do love couples, of course. So any issues couples come in with is fine. But with on the individual work, I always love when people are coming in with these feelings of like shame, self-worth. Not that I love people to be feeling that, but it's just something that
You
that's
like to see the transformation. You like
yeah.
to see the end result. You like to see the
Yeah,
end
it's
result.
something that's so passionate to me. And so the therapy realm of it can be a little different. Usually there's other major things we're working on, maybe anxiety, feelings of depression. And so the shame and self-worth is relevant, but it's not the core of what we're working on. And so yeah, I started the authentic life coaching because it's coaching is different because it's very like solution focused, solution oriented. And so really trying to help people not only identify the barriers of their authentic life, but also helping them move towards whatever goal that they've been sitting on. I always say that, there's some goal for most of us, maybe not all, but there's some goal that we have in the back of our head, big or small, it doesn't matter. And we've just been sitting on it for years and years because again that self-doubt, it's out of our comfort zone, and I love being able to help clients navigate this journey of like, no, you deserve to reach that goal, you can do it. So first let's discuss what your barriers are to reach that. Self-talk, we're going to address that, and then I'm going to set them up with, okay, what are baby steps to get to this goal that you've been sitting on. I love when it's achievable and attainable for people. And that's kind of what I do with the coaching. And so just this concept of authenticity, truly aligning ourselves with our authentic self, our authentic goals, and discussing some shame and self-worth within that. That's always like passion area of mine.
Right.
And so that's always my favorite. And that's kind of, I know you asked, I think earlier too, of like, yeah, how do people know what's good indication too of like, because it's something that you're super passionate about, right? It almost ignites this flame for you. It's rejuvenating, okay? Can be scary, some of the goals and opportunities, but it's like it's rejuvenating even after a a long day of doing all this stuff, I can still sit and do this thing because it's rejuvenating and passionate for me. And so we
Mm.
have to start
What?
deciphering between what's rejuvenating for us and then what's draining for us.
Mm.
Right.
And you've written a book. You're an author. So would you like to
Uh-huh.
share with the audience a bit about your book?
Yeah, yeah. So the first book was actually called Authentic. So it's
There's a pattern here. There's a pattern here. Well, you are being authentic, aren't
yeah.
you? You're sticking with it.
But very first one, and it's like super straight to the point. But even with that, it's like me putting something out in the world. That was like my first big step of like putting something out in the world. Extremely anxiety provoking, right? This is coming kind of towards the end of that current journey of like trying to let go of perfectionism. And so doing that was extremely difficult, but was able to do. So it's called Authentic, and it's really like revealing the layers to our authenticity. And so I kind of use authentic as an acronym. And so each letter kind of represents something that hinders our authenticity. And so it's a short book, easy to read, but hopefully insightful and helpful for people. And then the other one, this one I released, what was that? Maybe 2 years ago now. And so this one's a little different actually, but kind of similar in the sense of wanting us to kind of break free from like these societal limits and stepping into this liberation. But I am passionate about just like social justice, a lot of like race related issues. And so kind of in the height of COVID, there was so much going on within our world. And so I was kind of motivated, and something was calling me to kind of do some writing around that. And so my second book is called The Pursuit Toward Liberation. And it really talks a lot about just some of these race related issues, what we need to do as a society collectively to move forward together, right? And what that would look
Mm.
like. And so a little different from my first book, a little more, what's the word? Not controversial, but it can be triggering
Well,
in a sense,
a
right?
conversation that people we need to have.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
needed to be brought up.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, so that's the second one, and yeah, we'll see if I'll do another or not. But two's good for now. But now I've been kind of delved in the podcast world, so
Right. And so, yes. So, well, share with the audience about your podcast then.
yeah, yeah. Then the
It's gonna be
podcast,
similar. There's gonna be a word that you recognize. It's
yeah.
definitely gonna be a word that you're
Listeners are gonna be like, "This is getting repetitive now."
Yeah, but it's keeping it real, you see.
So yeah, the podcast is called All Things Authentic. And again, right, yeah, it's hard to get away from this because again, once you know what's rejuvenating for you and your passion, you just have to stick with it sometimes. And so since I am so passionate about really being able to have like these difficult conversations, we live in this world and act like things are great and we're all living this life and we're not bothered by things. We're not going through things personally because most of us aren't posting that on social media. We're posting the good
Mm,
things and all the highlights. But it's like, let's talk about some things that are actually difficult, right? Let's talk about trauma a little more and how most of us are impacted by trauma.
yeah.
Let's talk about inner child, right? And so there's so many topics we talk about on that, but a lot of it again still gears around it's setting us up to be our authentic self. And it's just authentic conversation. So I love the guests that come on because they come on vulnerable, ready to share their stories. And my hope with the podcast is you hear this information and learn something, but also, and most importantly, you hear these stories of others and you see their vulnerability. And hopefully, it inspires you too to know that you can share your story, you can live in your truth, and it's okay for you to be vulnerable also.
Mm. So it's inspiring others, and also I suppose because we don't have the conversations, everybody
Mhm.
thinks it's only
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
They're the
Yeah.
only person that is having these feelings and
Yeah.
feeling like this because everybody else is living their best life.
Mhm. Yes,
And it
exactly.
ain't necessarily so.
Yeah, yes,
They
not at all.
they too are feeling it. I mean, it's for me, even though like the whole sort of self-development arena about, we've got to be positive, nobody's going to be positive all the time.
Mhm.
And I do feel that I get it, because we don't want to stay there. We don't want to
Mhm.
focus. I get it. We've got to turn our attention away to what we want.
Mhm.
But it's almost been forced too far to try and be that way. And it's not
Mhm.
sustainable and it's not real.
Mhm.
So now it's like it's okay to be honest and open and vulnerable.
Mhm.
However, my one fear with that would be that, again, people could get too comfortable in that. It's there to deal with stuff and deal with your trauma. Don't stay there.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
how do we, it's almost like there's been this movement to, oh, we've got to be all positive all the time. That's not real. To,
Yeah.
okay, yes, we still need to be open and honest and have these conversations,
Yeah.
but we also don't want to stay down there either. So how do we find this balance, I suppose, that
Yeah.
we're always all looking for?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I always tell clients it's almost this duality, right? Difficult things are going on for us, and it's okay for us to know that, okay, I kind of have to move forward. Sun still rises, sun still sets. I have these things to do. I just can't take a break. And also still knowing that like I'm in a lot of pain right now, grief, suffering. And so it's okay for both of those things to still coexist, right? And sometimes, yeah, it doesn't have to be like one or the other. But yeah, that does happen at times too, where it's like, okay, if we're not on the end of being extra positive all the time, and I always say that's just rooted in like avoidance, right? We're avoiding
Yeah.
what's really going on.
Denial.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
denial.
Yeah. And yeah, it can be the other spectrum of like, okay, now I'm just staying in this. It's been so difficult. I'm only staying in this. And that's when some people might need a little extra assistance, because when you get in like those almost pits that I call it, right? It could be a pit of grief, a pit of depression, whatever that feeling is. If you get too deep, it can be extremely difficult to kind of pull yourself out.
Mm.
And a lot of people don't understand how that is for some individuals. And so that's when some people might need some assistance from like therapists, whoever it might be. Even if there's a support system that's truly reliable for you, they might be able to help pull you out a little bit. But when you think about it, we all have to get to this place of healing. And again, healing doesn't have to have an endpoint, a destination, but we have to start realizing that we're all going through some things. If it's personal things within our life, if it's collectively as a society, there's a lot going on. And then even past things that individuals have gone through. But some healing has to be done. And so, in order to get from this pit you're in, you have to remember that, when am I going to start my healing? And healing is
Mm.
active, healing requires movement. Healing's almost this overused word too that we maybe throw around, or we think when we're in the pit that, well, they say time's going to heal, so I'll just wait. And it's like, well, you
Mm.
might be waiting for a little while, because yeah, time helps have distance between this stuff, but healing is like a verb, is how I see it, right? It requires some action, it requires us to do something. And so in order to get you from this pit to where you want to go, what is that healing journey going to look like? Right. And it might be acknowledging these difficult feelings, this pain that you're going through, but seeing yourself through somehow. And that's going to look differently for everyone,
Mm.
but that's going to be the biggest thing. It's like, have I made movement from this
Mm.
spectrum, right? This side of the spectrum. And if it's been, weeks, even some months, that's okay. Have some grace with yourself. But again, that in tuneness with ourselves, when you think that, yeah, it's been a few years
Maybe
and
it's time.
yeah, it's
Maybe it's
like,
time. So
yeah.
for anybody that realizes that maybe, yeah, it's time to heal,
Mhm.
how do they get in touch with you? What's your website for anybody that's just listening and can't see the links down below? But how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so website is a doctor, so just Vernessaroberts.com. And keep me in mind. And so if it's more the therapy work, and so if there happens to be any listeners from the state of California, I'm able to do therapy with you more. We can do deep dive into things. But if you are more interested in like coaching services, that's where we can kind of do coaching with anyone, any state, any country that you're in. So just being mindful of that too. If you're wanting a therapist, most therapists can only practice in the state that they're licensed in, but coaching is amazing because we can kind of expand around the globe.
And so your website again is
drvernessaroberts.com.
Dr.
Instagram is the same, Vernessa Roberts, and you can keep up with me on there also. Season 2 of the podcast will start, and so you'll start to see some videos of that too.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today from across the pond in and is it, will we say it's sunny California? What's the weather like over there right now?
There's some sun out, right? But it's been a little cool, and I know our cold is different from other parts of the country, but still about 40 degrees is too cold for me. So
yeah. Well, actually, London we did have a clear day this morning when I went out, it was actually clear. But yeah, I need the sunshine. I need the sunshine. So I'm slightly jealous of you over there. But thank you for taking your time out of your day for talking with us. Fascinating subject, and it is. We've all got to be our authentic self. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely I say this quite often. I've had my pink braids for many years. I mean, I'm going to be 51 next. Oh, not long. And I can remember when I was about 30, I took them out because of an older guy. I was living in Portugal. Came up to me, or I was in a shop or a cafe. I can't remember where. But he said, "Are you not too old to have hair like that?" And I was like, shocked. But I took them out. I allowed somebody's a personal opinion.
Yeah.
So no, I'm being my authentic self. I like my pink braids and they're staying. I don't care how old I get. So yes, be your authentic self. Lovely. Thank you for the conversation. And to everybody else, I will be back tomorrow with a coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.